To say that here in England we're going through a very trying time at the moment, well, you would be forgiven for thinking, really? Because here I am in the very heart of London in a beautiful park. Just look at these gorgeous flowers and literally lots of people relaxing in the humid heat, chums, let me tell you. And well, they can't afford the drinks at the nearby cafe. Many are doing like me and resorting back to bringing a flask. Nothing wrong with that, as many of you know. But you see, behind this sort of facade, what you can understand is, well, these are beautiful open green spaces that are free to use, that we should be allowed to turn up in without fear or, whatever. But of course, this is increasingly becoming very difficult in the London that Sadiq Khan has now created. And a bigger issue that's been let through by none other than the British Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner. Well, I mentioned the other day, but now there's this. As ever, let me explain. Morning, nice to see you, chums. Thank you so much for joining me today. As I say, in a beautiful spot here, very warm spot indeed, let me tell you. But of course we can't knock it, because in a few months we'll be all saying, remember that gorgeous summer of 2025. This is the problem, you see. Now, as we all know, right now over here in the United Kingdom, things are moving at a very fast pace. Very soon 16-year-old people will be able to vote, and that's a very dangerous thing. And I don't mean for the 16-year-olds, but actually for a lot of the parties concerned, because they don't necessarily at 16 share the values or the core messages that these people think they do. You know, it's always tricky when you let a new side in, right? And this is the problem that I would suggest that Keir Starmer hasn't thought through. It's a little bit like, of course, not thinking through the Vagrancy Act that his deputy let go, basically meaning that actually it's not an offence now to be a vagrant to sleep rough. So places like this, when you think about it, you could simply pitch a tent. And I mentioned this the other day about the royal parks and some of the issues that they're now having. One of the biggest eyesores that we have here in the United Kingdom at the moment, though, is the exclusive area of Park Lane in the very heart of London. That is home to all the big fancy hotels, the famous ones like the London Hilton on Hyde Park, and of course, the Dorchester, Grosvenor House, Marriott, so many more. But of late, a bunch of migrants have just literally pitched up in the middle of the green area on Park Lane. Now you might say, well, where else have they to go? Well, that is, obviously a problem if you come in here illegally. The other side of the coin is, though, they're now playing loud music, being very offensive, threatening, making food, barbecues at all hours of the night, and drinking and roaming around, forcing passers-by, people moving out of the hotels for money. Now, as I told you, the Dorchester and likes of those hotels cannot have it easy. Speaking to some of the staff off the record, they know this doesn't play very good for their luxurious brand. But according to a well-placed source and someone who let slip during a conversation, you see, the bottom line for them is that, yes, Westminster Council knows that it's actually not dealing with the problem. So the problem could be dealt with another way, as ever, I have to say, allegedly. You see, when I mentioned to this particular individual, well, could you not demand and say that you're not willing to pay your council tax or your rates because of the eyesore that they're creating, and of course, perhaps detrimental to your business? They very tactfully said, well, that's already in hand. So what I can tell you, and again, I have to say allegedly, is it appears, you see, if you're a very wealthy business and perhaps you're not happy with the way that your particular area is being invaded, well, it looks like the council might want to do a deal in order to placate you, keep your business. And again, I have to say allegedly. But the other side of the coin is this. The average person who could find literally on the high street vagrants, illegals moving in and setting up camps, all over the place, well, they don't have that luxury. And it's interesting, isn't it, to see how, as we've seen recently, those super injunctions where you do not know what truly is going on behind the scenes, but more importantly, find out at the 11th hour. Once again, a two-tier system from the two-tier Keir, who seemingly can never tell a straight answer. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.